Welcome to A Year in the Bible with Daily Grace. The Bible tells one big story of redemption, and we want to spend 5 minutes every day journeying through the Bible from start to finish and exploring how all of it points to Jesus. Welcome back to A Year in the Bible with Daily Grace. My name is Joanna Kimbrell, and I am happy to be walking through the book of Genesis with you. You know, we left off with some struggles between Laban and Jacob getting rich off of Laban's livestock, no matter how hard Laban tried to stop that from happening. So things are getting tense, and Laban doesn't see Jacob in a favorable light anymore. So God tells Jacob to get out. He tells him to head back to the land of his fathers with his wives, and he promises that he would be with them. And so they did, but they had to be sneaky. They ran away without Laban knowing. And what Jacob didn't know is that Rachel actually stole her father's household gods, idols that he worshipped and were very valuable from a wealth perspective. After days of pursuing them, Laban catches up. When he accuses Jacob of stealing his household gods, Jacob says that if they find anybody with them, that person can be killed. So this is bad because Jacob doesn't know that his beloved Rachel stole the idols. And so they do a thorough search, and Rachel has to think quickly. So she sits on top of them with her clothes covering them and pretends to be on her period, which means she wouldn't be able to stand up. So Laban does not find the idols, and Jacob is not happy with him for this accusation. And so after this disagreement, they actually make a covenant. And essentially, they're agreeing to stay away from each other and keep each other at a distance. And at this point, someone who Jacob had not seen in 20 years comes back into the story. Esau. Now, last time we saw Esau, he was filled with rage because of how Jacob tricked Isaac into giving him Esau's blessing. And Esau wanted to kill his brother. So Jacob has his servant go to Esau ahead of him and try to smooth things over, specifically by appealing to all of his wealth that he could give him. But the word that comes back leaves Jacob terrified. Esau is coming to meet you, and he's bringing 400 men with him. Yikes. So Jacob splits his people into 2 separate camps, thinking that if Esau attacks one, at least half of them will remain. And then we see growth in Isaac's faith, humility, and dependence on the Lord. Trouble and hardship have a way of doing that, don't they? He remembers how God promised to be with him. He acknowledges that all he has is all God's grace and he deserves none of it. And he asks God to come to his rescue. This is the posture that we all should have toward the Lord, not only in big, terrifying moments, but in our day-to-day. To remember God's promises, humble ourselves before him, and ask for his help. Then Jacob gathered a ton of animals to give to Esau as a gift, and his servants went ahead, and Jacob waited. Now, Jacob has spent his whole life striving and fighting with people, with Esau when he was younger, with Laban for the past 20 years, and now he is prepared for a battle. But that night, he learns that his battle has not been with men, but with God. He has been going his own way, rebelling against the Lord, but now he meets God face to face. He wrestles with God. Now, the text can be confusing because it calls this person who wrestles with Jacob a man, and God, and in other passages an angel. But when God appears in human form in Scripture, he is often called the angel of the Lord. So God wrestles physically with Jacob all night, and God wins. But Jacob does not go unchanged. God gives him a new name, Israel, which means contender of God or wrestler of God. Israel would become the name of all of Jacob's descendants, the Israelites, God's chosen people. It is God's grace to wrestle with Jacob, to change him, and even to give him the limp that reminds him who is really in control of all things. God does the same for us, doesn't he? He puts us through trials and hardship. He wounds and he heals, and he draws us to trust and depend on him in our pain. And that is grace. Jacob goes into his meeting with Esau with a totally new perspective. So the time has come, and Jacob sees Esau and his 400 men approaching. But instead of attacking, Esau runs to embrace Jacob. It's a beautiful reunion with many tears as Esau meets Jacob's wives and children. The two brothers have been reconciled. What an amazing work of the Lord. It is not unlike the parable of the prodigal son, who sinned greatly against his father, but when he returns, his father runs to embrace him. That is also a picture of the way that the Lord welcomes us, even when we have sinned so terribly. So Esau tells Jacob to continue journeying with him. Now, we don't know why, but Jacob actually delays and goes to Succoth and then settles in Shechem. There are a few experiences in my life where I have metaphorically wrestled with the Lord. In the face of suffering, of my own sinful ways, or of doubt, I have walked away with a limp. It's a limp that reminds me that God is the one who is in control. It's a limp that reminds me that a life worth living is lived for His glory. It's a limp that reminds me that God stepped in to intervene. And even though it caused pain, what I gained was far, far greater. Thank you so much for joining us today. We will continue right back here tomorrow with Genesis 34 through 36.